computer. There we go. All right, we are officially recording.
Well, welcome everyone. Let's see, I apologize, trying to bring up my agenda, which is difficult on a small screen. So I am officially calling this meeting to order. I make it at 1:05 p.m. on the 12th of November. I hope everyone has looked at the agenda, and therefore, are there any comments before we have a proposal to adopt the agenda?
We need to add an item to it, right, Kendall?
Oh, yes, we do. Item 5 something. Oh, it's 5. It's going to be item 5.6. See, this is what I get for taking my PowerPoint off the board. It's going to be item 5.6, the new patron policy discussion and vote.
Okay.
I did provide that in the reading packet and then completely forgot to put it into the agenda. Sorry.
Okay. Do I have a motion to adopt the agenda with this new revision?
This is Alyssa Williams. I move we adopt the agenda with the revision as stated.
Thank you. And a second?
Second.
Who was that, please?
Melody.
Oh, I thought I heard someone. Sorry.
So moved. This is Gina. So seconded. Sorry.
Excellent. The agenda has been adopted. Any comment on reviewing the minutes that were also sent out?
This says, Alyssa, I move that we adopt the minutes as written.
And this is Bobby, and I second that motion.
Fantastic. We're moving right along.
Should we vote on that?
Technicalities.
Sorry, you guys. Like I said, just had to get off the phone with that vendor. Shall we vote on that? Could I please have a sign of aye? Thank you for typing it in, Barbara. I appreciate the, the eye roll. I deserve it.
I think we should use the thumbs up reactions.
Oh, well, that's a good suggestion. We'll see about doing that. See about doing that in the future. Thank you. Thank you so much for the thumbs up. See, I was worried about making that mandatory because I knew that not everyone was aware of how to do that. Okay, I would say that does anyone want to vote nay against approving this? Just saying, you're allowed. Seeing none of that at the moment, it has passed. Thank you for your good spirit, Sharon. I appreciate your enthusiasm. I really do. Okay, we are on to Alyssa's section. Take it away, Alyssa.
Okay, so the board of directors met this morning, and Kendall will discuss this more when he discusses the budget, but the board did approve a 0% member increase in fees for the fiscal year 2022 budget. So we're looking out for you, members. And the other action item we took was, as part of the strategic plan, one of our first steps was to charter a committee to review member service levels. So this is the first step in updating membership fees. So this committee is chaired by Jeff Brooks, and he will be reaching out to some individuals regarding membership on the committee. And this committee is looking at membership service levels. So, you know, at what level is each library and what do you get for being at that library, that level? And then finally, because these meetings are via Zoom, and this is my third Zoom meeting of the day, the board typically meets in the morning of users group, and we decided that for February and May, we are going to meet the day before users group so that those of us on the board don't have to spend our entire day in a Zoom meeting as much as we love libraries and Kendall. So the board will be meeting the day before the February users group meeting and the day before the May users group meeting via Zoom. And we will, once we go back to in-person meetings, which hopefully by August of 2021 we can do, we will then meet on the same day again. That is my report.
Thank you, Alyssa. Are there any specific questions or concerns that anyone would like to bring up? As Alyssa mentioned, some of this will be gone into detail in the later on in the meeting. Okay, thank you again for. We're going to keep moving on with this agenda. Let's see, committee reports.
I would just like to point out that the RSA Day Committee is actually meeting on Tuesday next week.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for that information. Glad to hear it. Looking ahead to the future is always a good thing. So the database committee, let's hear from them.
Basically, how we've been doing this is we've just been sending out the meeting notes, and then if there are questions, we'll answer those questions rather than read through the notes. We're hoping people are reading through the packages before the meeting.
Good point. Well, thank you for the reminder, Kendall. Would anyone like to ask questions, make comments, etc., compliment the font choice, anything about the committee meeting reports? Oh, thank you, Courtney. That's a very good, kind thing to say. Yes, Courtney comments that they're lovely reports, and I second that. Yeah, that'll go into the minutes. There was a question, Alyssa, don't know if you saw it, that the question about RSA, is the committee planning a virtual event for 2021?
That's what we're discussing on Tuesday is what we're going to do. And depending on when. So more to come at the next users group meeting.
Thank you. Thank you for that, Alyssa. Okay, well, there don't seem to be any comments other than, compliments on those. So, okay.
So same deal here with the written package, although we'll cover the strat plan quickly later. We will be covering the help desk later, so we don't need to talk about that yet. The new patron draft policy, whatever that says there, I can't read right now. That's also covered later. So anything else, if you have a question, let us know.
Okay. Sounds like we're moving right along.
Love it.
Ooh, RSA information and updates. Kendall, keep on going with staffing updates.
Will do. All right, so we got some staff anniversaries this quarter. Rhonda's been with RSA for 8 years. Doug has been with RSA for 4 years, and Anna has been with RSA for 2 years. So congratulations to them for putting up with me for that amount of time. Always appreciated. Anna and I and Rails HR did conduct some interviews on Tuesday to try and fill Jamie's Member Services User Experience Coordinator. We will not know the outcome of that for some time. We've turned it back over to HR for the Rails HR folks to reach out and see if we can come to an agreement. Anybody who uses Limerick for your healthcare knows that Limerick has all new providers this year. So Rails HR is completely booked up with open enrollment that just started yesterday. They have to redo everything, every form for all 100-ish Rails staff members. So it's probably going to take a while for these the outcome of our hiring process to come to a fruition that we can announce. So just stay tuned on that. If we don't end up hiring anybody, we plan to advertise right before the holiday break. Maybe, you know, somebody's at home over the holidays wanting a new job, and maybe they'd be out looking. I don't know. We'll see. And just kind of, I don't think this is a surprise to anybody, but we are primarily all working at home. I am in the office 2 days a week. Anna's in the office 1 day a week. I think Erica's in the office 1 day a week, just to kind of keep a presence in the building and make sure that, you know, the water pipes don't burst and that kind of thing through winter. But we are not planning on coming back to the office anytime soon. And Lord knows we may all be locked down for 4 to 6 weeks, depending on what the new administration would like to do. Okay, so I'm going to turn this over to Erica. I've been talking all morning, so I'm very happy to do that. I will turn this over to Erica, and Erica, if you could give me the audio visual person beep when you want the slide changed, I will do that for you.
Okay, great. I'm hoping everyone can hear me. Hello, everyone. If you can hear, go ahead and give me a thumbs up or clap, however you want to do it. Okay, so I thought what we could do today, I'd like to spend some time this afternoon discussing why and how RSA is rethinking cataloging operations. I started to get some concerns, and actually some of them were from a few of you in this meeting, which I'm sure that you remember reaching out to me, which is much appreciated. But we started to think about doing this when we lengthened our turnaround time for a cataloging request. It was at the end of September. You might remember there was a listserv post about how we were lengthening the time it takes to get a cataloging request available on some kind of bibliographic record, whether it's a good full OCLC record, or maybe it's an OCLC record that's not that great, but it's good enough, or it's a workflows brief record with just the title author. We talked about in that listserv post in late September how we were lengthening the processing time for those requests from 7 to 14 business days after the item finished quarantine, if it was a delivery submission. We were lengthening it from that to 21 to 28 business days. That really tipped off the concerns coming in. And I'm almost, I shouldn't say I'm glad that we made that decision to lengthen the turnaround time, but the need to rework things has been a long time coming. So I think these concerns that have popped up recently have just been a good indicator we need to rethink what we're doing. So let me see here. Yeah, so I did want to talk about just summarizing some of the recent member concerns like the slide there has on it. I don't want to go into too much depth about these, but feel free in the chat if any of these you want more detail about at this time, or any of you are welcome to follow up with me after the meeting if there's specific concerns that maybe you don't want to share in this group setting. or there's things you want to talk about specifically in the context of your library's cataloging requests. But like I said, I really appreciate everybody who reached out to me these past several weeks to share their concerns, because it really has helped us take a look at what we're doing and think about what we can do differently. Okay, the first member concern is just that standard processing time being lengthened, being doubled from the 7 to 14 business days to the 21 to 28 business days. Over the past 6 months especially, the volume of incoming cataloging requests has been skyrocketing. And this is the longest growth spurt, for lack of a better term, that we've seen with cataloging request submissions. We're a relatively young centralized cataloging department compared to other shared consortia in the state. We're only 5.5 years old. But even then, a lot has happened in 5.5 years, which I'm sure you'd agree with as well, just in terms of what you've been doing with your library. Yeah, so the concern about the lengthening of the processing time for that standard request, that's been really the first concern. The second concern we've heard is, and this is a concern for us as well, especially as things have been skyrocketing, and really it's been just trying to keep our heads above the water with what's coming in. The growing size of the backlog, and you might be wondering, well, what exactly is in the backlog? Any cataloging requests that come in, remember, we want to get it cataloged on some kind of bibliographic record so your patrons can start checking it out. They can place holds on it. It can start to be used. But that record, remember I mentioned earlier, sometimes there's a not so good OCLC record. Sometimes there's just a workflows brief record. If the record needs to be revisited and fleshed out to good quality cataloging with subject headings and summaries and contents notes, genre headings, all of those things that help you and your patrons find the item, understand what its content is, and then decide, yes, I want that. So any records that need that improvement, those are put into the backlog and revisited as time allows. Well, with the increasing volume of requests these past 6 months or so, it's been very difficult for the team to get any time to work on the backlog. Maybe there's little short periods here and there, but the backlog continues to deepen as the number of incoming requests grows. So I think this concern is certainly valid about the growing backlog. The oldest request in there is just over 2 years old, and right now it's a little bit tricky to do accurate searching in our help desk, which Kendall will mention later. But my best estimate is at this point there's about 6,000 to 7,000 requests in the backlog, and it's growing. So valid concern. Next concern we've heard, and this one's a little bit tricky to explain. It's confusing if you send a rush request and it's put into the delivery. We've had some confusion and understandably some concerns about that. Even though it's a rush request, meaning that you want it processed more quickly than the 21 to 28 business days, it still needs to sit in quarantine once it reaches our office. And right now, thankfully, remember the quarantine that Rails is recommending has been reduced since the end of October from 7 to 3 days. So that's helped a little bit. But I know from our end, I realize we haven't made it clear enough that if it's a physical item, or if you're taking paper photocopies of the physical item and you're putting them in delivery, anything that comes through delivery, even if it's a rush, it still has to be quarantined. The other piece of this is, and certainly not trying to point any fingers at the Rails delivery department, there certainly overloaded as well and working as efficiently as they can. But they too have a lot of work to do, and they're short-staffed, unfortunately. They've had some absences, both planned and unplanned. You've maybe seen on the delivery listservs. There's been a couple staff with COVID-19, unfortunately. So the other piece of this that's important to keep in mind about anything coming in delivery for cataloging requests, there's a delay when it reaches the East Peoria hub, being sorted by delivery and then dropped off in our office for then the cataloging team to handle. So those are a couple things I wanted to be sure and mention about delivery and cataloging requests, particularly for Rush, but for standard ones as well. Okay, next concern is the lack of OCLC connection client training for the RSA membership. I know several of you in this meeting have asked me about this. So again, I have been taking note, even though I probably told you, oh, we're going to, you know, we've put that on hiatus right now. That's something we're not currently doing. We will look at restarting that, but just be assured that your concern has been heard. And I realize we stopped providing this training. It's probably been 3 or 4 years ago at this point, but we had stopped that training to shift towards the more centralized cataloging approach of having cataloging requests submitted to us, because we recognized we really needed to cut down on some of the more prevalent issues in the database, such as the loading of poor quality OCLC records, overuse of workflows brief records. So we did make the conscious choice. I'm sure lots of you remember to stop this training several years ago to try and focus on the centralized approach of sending things to RSA and trying to get the database in better shape than what it had been in when, as Kendall affectionately calls it, when it was the Wild West of OCLC cataloging with our members doing it. But again, like I said, just be assured we've heard your concerns about restarting that training. And then the last concern that's been shared that has really been a recurring one, there's been a couple concerns about the lack of training for RSA members, how to edit, upgrade, and create original OCLC records themselves. So this is what we call the advanced cataloging level unofficially. It's not really documented anywhere at this point. But I know that the thought process was, oh, if we learn to do this ourselves, we can avoid burdening RSA to do it. We know that there's a handful of libraries. Some of you are here in this meeting, like Peoria, Normal, Quincy, I think even Clover, even though it's smaller, I think they have somebody with some cataloging training. Unfortunately, that type of training is really beyond our scope to provide as a shared automation consortia. That type of training is at least usually 1 semester long as part of a library technical associates program or a Master of Library Science program. So this one, unfortunately, I feel like I can't address it too much in-house at RSA, but remember there's free training opportunities provided by the Cataloging Maintenance Center, the CMC. Some of them have actually joined us right now for this meeting because we're going to mention the CMC here in a few minutes. But just remember, there is free cataloging training that's provided by the Cataloging Maintenance Center, and then also Rails. Nancy George, the centralized, not centralized, the Rails Cataloging Services Coordinator, organizes continuing education and teaches workshops as well. So we do try to share invitations to those on the RSA listserv, so just keep an eye out. But this concern, though, unfortunately, I just can't really accommodate that in-house given the scope of RSA and what we're trying to do from our end, rather than training all of you to do the advanced cataloging. Okay, I'm going to pause here just to see if there's anything in the text chat or if you have any other concerns at this point about cataloging requests or cataloging training that you feel need to be brought up with this group. Has there been anything in the chat?
I don't see anything in the chat, Erica.
Okay, I'll go ahead and push forward. Yeah, and then the other reason too, we recognize we need to rethink things. Like I've already mentioned several times, the increase in the number of requests being submitted has just been going through the roof. This is a good thing, actually, because that means all of you recognize the quality that we need on our bibliographic records and wanting good records for you and your patrons. But on the other hand, we've got to figure out how to make this more manageable, both for you submitting these and for us here at RSA processing them. So I don't have specific statistics, but it's been at least a couple hundred, if not more, requests every month that these total incoming requests have been growing. Before the pandemic, we were typically at 1,000 to maybe 1,500 total requests submitted in a month. Now it's approaching the 2,000 mark in a single month. So there's certainly a growth in what we're doing, and another indicator we need to rethink things. That being said, though, I don't want any of this to seem like it's a shortcoming either on your part or our part. It's just time based on concerns, bless you, in the statistics that we had been reviewing. Okay, I'll have you, Kendall, move to the second slide.
Beep.
Okay, a disclaimer about these. These are proposals. These are things that we're pretty sure need to happen in order to make the cataloging requests and then also some of the associated functionality like the OCLC connection training. These are some of the pieces we know we need to look at changing here. I don't want to share specifics at this point, but just keep in mind that some of the things we will be talking about in more depth in an event in about a month from now that I'll mention again here in a few minutes. The first thing we know we need to do is to revise the criteria for when you're submitting a request. So all of the instances you've been submitting cataloging requests for that might have worked 5 years ago, but in light of what's happened the past several months and also the concerns that you shared with me, we need to rethink what you're sending to us. The second thing, like it mentions there, tackling the cataloging request backlog. Remember, I mentioned a few minutes ago, it's by best estimate between 6,000 and 7,000 requests waiting to be revisited for good quality cataloging to make them more discoverable for you and your patrons. I am thrilled to announce that we are going to be collaborating with the Cataloging Maintenance Center, the CMC we were talking about earlier that provides that cataloging training. We're thrilled that we are going to be collaborating with them to process the backlog. We don't want anything that's been submitted to us and put into the backlog going to waste, because we know each of you spent time and effort submitting those, recognizing that we had asked you to do so and recognizing the importance of trying to get a good quality record for you and your patrons. We're still working out specifics about tackling the backlog, and there's many procedural considerations, but you will be hearing from the CMC staff in the coming months as they start to help us with the backlog. So we're very grateful. We'll certainly keep you informed as the partnership takes shape. But since the CMC staff have joined us for this meeting, I thought we could take this opportunity just to have them, if you have a camera, if you want to turn on your camera and unmute yourself, say hello and your name. If you don't have a camera or a microphone, you could feel free to just put it in the text chat. But I thought we could just start with Pamela Thomas, the CMC coordinator, if you'd like to unmute and show yourself.
Hi, Erica. I should be visible. Hopefully you can hear me.
Yes. Hey, Pam.
Hi.
Pam is the coordinator, so she is
Yep.
going to be helping me make sure we're all on track and making sure all the details are working correctly, because this is definitely something new and different for us. So I'm sure there will be some glitches we'll have to work through. So Pam will be the point of contact. Okay, great. Thank you, Pam. And then there's also Sherry from the Cataloging Maintenance Center. If you want to say hi, Sherry.
Hi, my name is Sherry Schuler Faust, and I'm one of the members of the Cataloging Maintenance Center.
And I think, Sherry, you've worked at the CMC the longest. Is that
Yes.
right? Okay.
Yes, I've been working with the CMC since about 2008.
Okay.
And then also I worked with the CMC back in 2001 when it was first formed.
Okay, great. Yeah, lots of cataloging expertise there. Oh, and we should have mentioned for Pam, she worked at ICC as well. You might remember her from there. Okay, thanks, Sherry. Let's go ahead and unmute Ian. He's the next CMC cataloger. I think he's on the call.
Yes, my name is Ian Anderson, and I'm a cataloger.
And you work in the Champaign
Champaign
office, right?
office, yep.
Okay. Okay, great. Thanks, Ian. And then next we'll jump to Erin.
Hi, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Hi, Erin.
Hey. Hi, sorry, new headphones. I am the metadata cataloger for the CMC.
Like, luckily you wear many hats and also do mark cataloging.
Me too.
Woohoo. Okay, great. Thanks, Erin. And then Heidi, let's jump to you.
Hello, I'm Heidi. I am a cataloger at the Edwardsville location, and I am the newest cataloger with the CMC, and I actually started right at the beginning of COVID, so it's been a wild ride.
Oh, I can only imagine. Well, welcome, Heidi. It's nice to put a voice with the name. I know I've seen the name, but not actually heard your voice. So, okay, great. Thank you. Yeah, mostly we just want the CMC to be informed of this project. That's why we invited them to this meeting and had them chime in, because remember, our members that have submitted cataloging requests, will be hearing from them as the CMC helps us with the backlog. So we just wanted to help you, our members, put a face to a name. Okay, the next proposal on there is to rework the OCLC connection client training. This one I did want to talk a little bit about. I'm not, like I said, wanting to share nitty gritty specifics at this point, because we're still thinking those through. But the membership levels for RSA, remember those were mentioned at the beginning of the meeting, that the committee was chartered and the committee will push forward. At the earliest, those new membership levels and their accompanying fee structure, it's probably not going to be until at the earliest calendar year 2022. I was hoping it would be next year. I feel like I'm always overly ambitious in what I'm hoping for. But I do feel like with 2 years to go, technically 1 year since we're at the end of 2020, but I do know that there's several members that have been dutifully submitting cataloging requests that I think would be good candidates to do the connection client training. So we'll talk more about that as details take shape. There'll be an event here in about a month, I'll mention here at the end of this presentation. But mostly, I do see the need to go ahead and try to push forward with this, hopefully restarting this by summer 2021, since the membership levels are really a long ways off. And we were initially thinking, oh, we can just wait to do the OCLC training, restarting that, reworking the curriculum. We could just do all that as part of the membership levels. But at this point, I think that's too far off in the future when we have some members that would benefit from using Connection. And then the last thing on here in terms of a proposal, and this one I admit is the squishiest of the proposals. I'm still trying to think this through, but remember I mentioned there's a handful of libraries that you have staff and you have time and they've been trained and it's part of their official library position description to do advanced cataloging, whether it's creating original records, editing records, improving them. I'd like to try and get more cohesion among those members as well as us here at RSA doing the cataloging, more cohesion about what we think constitutes a good quality record, just to try and get some more consistency in what we're doing. For example, agreeing that we don't put the series, the name of the series as the title, as part of the title on the bibliographic record, that kind of consistency, because we know that it's made just search, match, and attach difficult when some of the description on the various bibliographic records slightly varies. Even though it's not truly a problem, it can still cause confusion. I know we pull records from OCLC, so we can't control everything, obviously, but I feel like the handful of us that are cataloging at that more advanced level, we can try to get on board with some agreement amongst us of what we're doing to ensure we're making good records. Okay, any questions about the proposals? I know I didn't share specifics since we're still working on those, but that's the plan at this point, what we're looking at. Okay, final slide. Okay, so this event I've mentioned a couple times off and on throughout this presentation today. We're going to have a cataloging request roundtable on Friday, December 4th from 10 to noon, completely in Zoom. Nobody has to come here to our office. We put the registration link there. This event is also posted on L2, but you will register on Zoom, not L2, even though it's posted there. So you can check on the L2 calendar. We'll share an invitation on the listserv in the next, hopefully within the next week or so, we can get that out. And we'll discuss these changes in more depth. The CMC staff will join us again. We'll outline an implementation plan. There'll be phases to these proposals, actually putting them into place. And then there'll be plenty of time for cataloging staff and also their supervisors, which very well could be you, to share questions or concerns. So we'll use that meeting as an opportunity to have a discussion. We will record it, so just stay tuned. We'll take notes, so just stay tuned on the listserv if you're unable to join us and you're looking for the archive. Okay, any questions about the roundtable? Okay, we hope you can join us. I know most of you in this group don't do the cataloging per se, but you may supervise staff that catalog or help out in some capacity. So like I said, we really want all the voices we can get in on this discussion. And then one last quick thing I want to mention. Thank you, Chantry. I think she's in this meeting right now. Chantry had reached out to me a couple times about the OCLC batch holding updates. I think at the previous user group, we talked about how our current service that takes your workflows holdings and then it updates them in OCLC, either adding or removing the holding in OCLC WorldCat. We talked about how there's a new service for that called OCLC Holding Manager. We did our first initial test in August. It went well, holdings updated. We had some errors, but nothing significant. In late October, about 2 weeks ago, James and I got a message from the OHM administrators who work for the SWAN Consortium up north that there's a critical piece of the process that they're trying to rework to streamline the processing of the holdings. So they've unfortunately had to put the OCLC holding updates on hold for October and November. So if you're seeing your holdings aren't updated in OCLC WorldCat for interlibrary loan requests there. That's why the process has paused here as they're trying to figure out reworking that part of the file submission process. So once it's restarted again, we will send a note on the listserv letting you know we're back to the monthly schedule, but we do want to start resuming this monthly. We know that you count on us to update your holdings. We're just struggling with some L2, or excuse me, not L2, that too has growing pains, but also we're just struggling with some growing pains for this new own process. So we'll get through it, but it just takes some time. So thank you so much for being patient. Okay, I think I am finally done. Really appreciate your attention this afternoon. I know it's probably not the most earth-shattering, well, maybe the OCLC connection training part was, but I just feel we should try to keep everyone informed of these changes we'll be making. Okay, thank you.
All right. I believe Anna is next.
If I can find my mouse to unmute myself, we will be in business. Okay, I am talking about the no transit user. You know, basically, I think most libraries are relatively familiar with the no transit user. The idea behind the no transit user is that this is kind of a library, you know, it's an in-library use account that you create so that items that you are not able to send out to fill hold for whatever reason, hopefully a good reason, you know, are not just lingering in transit status. And that way, you know, if other libraries own the item, you know, the hold requests are routing to a library that is actually able to fill it. So basically, that's kind of what it exists for. Early on in the you know, pandemic, when delivery was not yet running, we ran into, you know, the no transit users were getting a lot of use because of, you know, items that were showing up on your pick list that you could not send because they were, you know, not because we weren't sending anything, basically. And at the time, we kind of realized that the no transit user, which we had thought maybe displayed a special status in the catalog, because in an older version of the catalog it did, it was simply displaying as checked out, which created confusion, and patrons thought that things that, you know, would have been available for local use were not. Anyway, Kendall has been working a lot with Circe Dynix, and they have now gotten it so that items charged to the no transit user will display a status of available for local checkout, ask staff for location in the RSA cat, which is nice because that's kind of the intent behind these items, is that they may be available for local use. They're just, you know, maybe you've got it on a display, maybe it's a new book and you're not ready to send it out, you know, things of that nature. So just be aware, though, that those items that are charged to the no transit user will display that way in the catalog. Similarly, he's also worked on the reshelving status, the reshelving location, so that will also display in the catalog as, you know, being returned to standard shelving location. So we understand that with quarantine, you know, that item may just actually be in quarantine, but hopefully this will give patrons a better idea of what the actual status of that item is and whether it is available. If you do not have a no transit user, I would encourage every library to set one up. It is a fairly simple process. My big request is that there is a document on how to create a no transit user, which is linked in the you know, packet, and I will go ahead and sneak the link into the chat right here. There it is. There is a naming convention, which I would ask that you adhere to if you're setting up a no transit user, partially because we have had situations where libraries have accidentally used each other's no transit user when it's just been named no transit. Similarly with discard users, please don't name your discard user just discard. Name it, you know, whatever the standard is. I can't remember, Washington/discard or discard/Washington. I can't remember the names, but it's in the cheat sheet. Please indicate which libraries no transit user this is. And of course, the intent of this is that this should only be your own items. You should, generally speaking, not be charging other libraries' items to your own no transit user, unless something truly weird is going on, in which case you should probably also be calling me. But that, I think, hopefully I have hit everything. No transit user is not necessarily one that is automatically in everyone's drop-down menu of user profiles. If it is not in yours and you want to set one up and don't already have one, just send a ticket to the help desk. We can get that added to your list of user profiles for you, and we'll probably also send you a link to the cheat sheet while we're at it. So does anyone have any questions about that change or about no transit users in general? Cool.
Yes, please.
Oh.
Shoot. Yeah, fast.
Yeah.
Can we use the no transit, to every once in a while I'll bring in books from another library to evaluate for purchase on the collection. Can I use it in that way for ILL purposes?
You mean to to make the request, or?
Yes, for one. For two, things charged to the no transit user tend to show up just like regular circulation stats. Can that be tweaked out daily?
I believe I think the no transit user is supposed to not tally.
I know Discard does because it just did it for me off my Monday report.
Right. I think
I am totally on the wire. I'm 10 minutes from open, so
sorry.
Conversation later.
Okay, yeah, I will double check on that. I'm pretty sure it's configured not to tally, but I'll check with Kendall and make sure I'm looking in the right place to know that.
You see, I'll listen as I can from this point on. Who knows?
But for your issue, I am almost kind of I'm wondering if another type of library use card might be better. But we can chat about that sometime and figure out how you want it to act and go down the list of profiles on a call or something. Come to a virtual office hours.
Anna?
Yes.
Would you, I don't actually know what ours is named. I'm looking that up. Would you like us to rename our no transit?
If you have a no transit user that is simply called no transit, I would appreciate it if you would change the name to something that reflects.
Sure, mine is called COVID-19 because that's why I set it up.
Right. I mean,
Yeah. Okay.
But I would like it to indicate which libraries it is in the name, because a lot of times if people don't have the card to hand, they will just search for the name of no transit, and you can find a fair amount of cards that way. So I just don't want people's items ending up on the wrong no transit user, because that's confusing. Thank you. Okay. Anything else on that? Okay. And Kendall has moved me to the next line. Okay. So we are manually removing notes from items that are.
These are the lost trans.
The lost trans stuff.
Yeah. So basically, 2 years ago, maybe we set up an automatic process that anything that was in transit for more than 45 days as of the first of the month was automatically moved out of transit and checked out to a user called the lost trans user for your library. And it did that, and then it placed a staff note on the item that said lost trans, the date it was transited, who the transiting library was, and who the receiving library was. And so if you looked at the item in workflows, you could see that staff note and go, oh, it's lost in transit. Peoria sent it to me. It never got here, right? Which means not probably that it got lost in delivery, but more likely it's sitting on somebody's shelf somewhere and just didn't get scanned. So and that was fine for a while. We had initially asked libraries that when an item appeared in their library and it was checked out to the lost trans user, if they would manually remove the staff note that was placed on the item, that would be great. That of course didn't happen. And so as this thing ran month after month, and I get reports that show me, not only just how many, but the actual items, I got looking at some of the items, and some of these items had been lost in transit multiple times. And I'm thinking, well, you know, if it's been lost in transit multiple times, that also means it's been found multiple times, and these notes, you know, are no longer valid. So we did not have a good way of removing staff notes up until the last system upgrade we did in August. Now we do have a very easy way to do that. It's a manual process, but it doesn't take long to do. So around the end of the month, James sits down at his computer and he manually removes the lost transit notes from any library that is not in the lost, missing, or lost transit location. I think lost assume is also one of the, I think there's actually 4 there.
That sounds right.
So basically what happens is, if someone finds an item and scans it, the system either transits it to its home library or tells you to put it back on its shelf, and it's no longer in that lost transit location. Now that the thing is found, that lost transit note is useless, so we are going to remove it at basically the end of every month. So the number of things that are currently in that lost trans location has shrunk dramatically. So, and also it's one less thing you guys have to remember to manually remove. So that's what that is about. And then we have the final conversation for methods and practices. This is kind of an Anna thing. We got talking about ILL items. These are things coming into your library from outside of RSA, right? So I don't know, maybe you request something from Naperville Public, and Naperville sends you an item, and you scan the barcode into a temporary record and you assign it an item type. Our question is, what stats are you guys running? What stats do you need? And what item type are you using? So the little box on the left here, the ones in yellow are currently not being used at all. The ones on the right are being used. Some of them, like the Illinois ILIL, get used a lot, and just the flat ILL gets used a lot. I guess our question is, do you guys really care if it comes from an academic library or a special library or a public library? Or do you just really want to know it's a Find More Illinois ILL if you're a Find More library? That is important that you need to know. And if not, maybe we just need to use 1 or 2 item types. Or are you guys using these item types? Because clearly somebody's using the other item types. Are you using those to separate them out for stats purposes?
I know in-state and out-of-state is on one of the big surveys, I think.
Yes, it's on IPLR, I'm pretty sure.
Thank you.
So I think that's an important one to keep.
Yeah. So ILL
US,
Illinois, and ILL US need to stay.
Speaking for my library, that really is all that we look at. We don't look at any other specifics, but that's one library.
And just for those of you who weren't around back in the day, these ones up at the top here, these were set up in 2007 when we went live, because back in those days, that stuff all did get tracked. If it was inside of RSA and came from an academic, special, public, or school, if it was outside of RSA and came from an academic, special, public, or school, libraries had to fill out a report monthly with that data. Fond du Lac is using ILL and ILL US, so essentially in-state and out-of-state as well.
Yeah, I guess, I mean, for these purposes, as long as you're using, you know, if you're using ILL for all in-state stuff and not ILL, IL, you know, then as long as you know how you're using each of them, then your statistical reports will be right. But you know, and I know also at some point it sounds like there had been discussion about not using just plain ILL, but using ILL-book instead. And some of the cheat sheets reflect a little bit about, like, if ILL just for ILL items and ILL-book for ILL books. Is that a meaningful distinction for anyone, or can we just make it ILL? Is anyone worried about the actual type of item?
I will say for Henry, and I realize we're really little and there are things that we can do that other people can't. When we load that brief record for the ILL item, I load category 1, 2, and 3 as this is a book or it's a something else. This is an adult or it's a kid. This is a fiction or a nonfiction, because I am using a combination of those 3 item types to do my general circulation statistics.
Makes sense.
And I also, because again, we're small and I can do this, set up that the default is it's a book, it's adult, it's nonfiction, because that's mostly what we order from not in RSA.
Right. Okay. Okay, so it sounds like we definitely need ILL, or ILL US, ILL. We need to find more Illinois for sure. And sounds like
It looks like people are either using ILL or ILL.
Right.
But not both.
Right.
One thing I wanted to ask, this is Erica again, with the item category 3, right now, all of the ILL item types, they're mapped to book. And by mapped, I mean at the beginning of each day, early in the morning, RSA runs an automated quality control script that makes sure the correct item category 3 has been assigned based off of the item type. And I'm just wondering, based off of what Elizabeth said, and maybe some of you too in this meeting, if we need to maybe exclude the ILL item types that we end up using from this cleanup script. Because if Elizabeth receives a DVD interlibrary loan, I know you said, Elizabeth, it's mostly books, but let's say, you get a movie, I'm sure it happens. And she codes it as, ILL item type, and then the category 3 movie. The next time the quality control script runs the next morning, it's going to see ILL item type and say, oh, the predominant item type format for this general format is book. So I'll switch this from movie to book. But that could skew her statistics, it sounds like. So I'm just curious if more of you are using the category 3 in combination with item type, and if we maybe need to let you assign the category 3 to whatever it should be, book, movie, whatever, and not have our script messing with it and changing it to book, even if it's really not a book.
That's good to know, Erica. Honestly, because of our size, our volume on these is so low that if something gets miscategorized and I have one that's in the wrong thing, life will go on.
Yeah.
But other places, if I had a bigger volume or I got a lot more DVDs or audiobooks that way, it would be a concern.
Okay, that's good to know from your perspective. It's okay. Any other thoughts from anyone else on this? If it doesn't matter too much, great. We'll continue as is. But I'm just glad, Elizabeth, you brought that up, because I thought, uh-oh, we're changing that on our end.
And then another just question I have that Kendall had started to ask. It's kind of sounding from the comments and stuff like people are using either ILL or ILL-ILL. Is anyone using both? Doesn't sound like it. Okay. Would anyone be brokenhearted if we got rid of one and had you flip to the other? Is anyone very committed to the one they're currently using? This is more of a curiosity question. I'm not actually considering,
No one will be brokenhearted until we do it.
There you go. Well, we may come out. Okay. Well, and that kind of makes sense if we have, Sharon just commented that they would prefer ILL-ILL and ILL-US, which kind of makes sense if we're making the distinction of national versus state to kind of be consistent in that. It's worth considering. Okay.
All right, Anna, I think you are still up next
Oh,
with
yes, I think.
our
Yes.
new item 5.6.
Okay, so in the circulation committee, we have been discussing one particular policy for over a year now. And we have finally landed on a draft that the circulation committee at least was ready to pass to the users group for approval and review. Hopefully you've all seen my email and had a chance to look it over. Is there any discussion? Kendall, could you put the draft up, or
I
let
can
me
put the
share
draft
screen?
up. Well, if I knew what item it was, I could put the graph up. It's not that one.
There.
Here it is. I will 2-page it. This is the page you're looking at. Is that big enough for people to read? Let me zoom in a bit. There, that's better.
Okay, so any discussion?
This is Lexi at Washington. Our official position is that change it, don't change it, let's just make a call. Let's just pick one.
I think that's kind of where the CERT committee was too. And we think part of the reason we landed on this was it kind of best reflects sort of the spirit of the current policy, which was just $5. You know, if they have fines under $5, they're good, move on. But since the $5 was no longer the universal fine block limit, it kind of needed to change. So now it's basically, if, you know, if they are at whatever their previous library's fine block limit was, which means their status would be delinquent but not blocked, or their status would be okay, then you just move on, give them a card. And then the policy has some more specifics about, you know, do you actually forgive the fines, or, you know, does the home library forgive the fines when they get their reciprocal patron deletion, and, you know, little nitty gritty things. But we kind of felt like this is kind of the, you know, it kind of honors the pre-existing agreement they had with their old library, and that way they don't walk into a new library and suddenly have different rules than what they were expecting at their old library. And then the new library going forward, it will be their rules. So that was kind of the logic. So if there is, feel free to discuss, but if there is no further discussion and you would like, and someone is moved to call for a vote, then feel free to do that.
Does anyone feel so moved to
move?
To move? Thank you, Anna.
This is Barbara Love. I so move.
Thank you, Barbara. Lexi, any strong feelings on seconding that, or anyone else?
Yes, I will happily second that. Let's
make
a decision.
Okay. And Kendall, I believe there is a poll.
There is. So some upfront news about the polling. We are going to launch a poll that is essentially the vote on this issue. The way RSA works is every library has one vote. So if you are the director or the director appointed head person for this particular meeting, feel free to vote. If you are not that person, please do not vote so we can have an unadulterated count.
Melody, I saw your comment. If you could please log your vote on the actual poll. If you're not able to do that, if anyone is like, thank you, Melody. If anyone is somehow not able to vote when they think they should, if your mouse isn't working or something like that, please do say something in the chat.
Melody says she voted twice. As Joel points out, that is the American way. or at least the Illinois way. All right, we have 36 votes, which came in incredibly quickly. Thank you very much. Oh, we didn't.
They're
We're
still
up to,
trickling in.
they're still trickling in.
We have to count the mail-in ballots.
That's right. We have, let's see, there are 75 people online right now, and we have 122 mail-in ballots. So I think everything is on the up and up. Okay, so interesting thing on my end, I have a monitor screen up, so I'm logged in as a regular person, and all I can see is yes, no on this vote policy. But on my screen, on the presenter screen, I can see not only yes, no, but how many people voted.
Yeah, I think you have to do,
breakout.
I think you have to end polling and then share. I think there's a share poll results option.
Yes, Anna, I believe you're correct.
We have 38 of 69 people who have voted. That's pretty good. That's probably about reflective of the number of libraries here.
Yeah.
And I will share results. And it's a 100% approval rating.
Yay!
Sorry, we've been talking about this policy for well over a year, so thank you. Well, Joel, I'm afraid that is not going to sway the outcome at this point. So there will probably be there will definitely be a listserv post coming soon to, kind of all the membership with like a little more explication of kind of, maybe a little bit more narrative of what this means. And, we'll make sure everyone's aware of the policy. In theory, this hopefully won't be too much of a change to what you're already doing. So thank you.
All right. Oh, I have to close that window manually. That's no fun. All right. Let's see. We will go back to the meeting if I can find the right tab. Nope, that wasn't the right tab. Let's try this one. There we go. Okay. Just a quick thing. This didn't make it into the agenda, but I wanted to tell everybody about it because it just got turned on basically yesterday. And I didn't want anybody freaking out if they noticed it. For quite some time, we've been trying to figure out a way to get more people to know that Unbound has a lot of cool information that will help patrons out. But to see that, you had to go to the item details screen and then switch off of the item list to the more information about this item tab. And we know people are not doing that quite so much. So we've been trying for some time to figure out how to get some of that information onto the search results screen itself. And we have finally managed to do that. There was a widget created about a month ago that we had installed, but it didn't work. So as it turns out, I'm on the Syndetics public board for public facing products, or I don't know what it's called. I'm on some board for Syndetics. So when I call them and complain about things, they put development staff on it. And so yesterday afternoon, they fixed their back end to work with our front end, which was very nice of them. So here's what the difference is, right? This is the exact same information that shows up on the item details screen. It's just showing up in our search results now, right? So summary, this Harry Potter book, I thought this was a good screenshot because the amount of information you get back depends on the item. So this is a book, but it's not a super popular or well-known book, so there's not as much information. This is a play away. It's got a little more information. If it was a movie, it would have a different amount of information. This is a book or a music CD or a book on CD. I love things when I find them like this in the catalog. That's why I use this particular example. But you'll see there's quite a lot of Syndetics Unbound information here. And all you do is you put your mouse over about this author and click on it, and you get a popover box right on top of the search results screen that gives you all the Syndetics information for that particular thing. If you were to click on the series, it would pop up a list of all the books in the series, and then you click on the book title and it will open that book up in the browser, or not in the browser, but in your RSA cat window. So it works basically the same way it does on the item details screen, but it's a lot more in patrons' face. So they will see it and know, hey, here's some additional information about all these items. So I think that's going to end up being popular. I did want to mention that though, because it just turned on and I didn't want anybody to get an email or, questions at the CERC desk and people in the library going, I have no idea what you're talking about. Okay, I have to pause my recording. All right, the recording should be back on. Yes. For those of you who are watching the recording, we just discussed the budget. If you want to know anything about the budget, give me a call. Again, no fee increase for this year, so there you go. All right. One big thing that I really need everybody's help with. We've been talking about a new help desk for almost 2 years. At first inside of staff, just trying to figure out what we wanted, what we needed, then playing around, trying to learn it, and then deciding, oh, this is way too complex. We can't figure this out ourselves. We need to get a third-party contractor to come in and help us. We've done all of that. And on January 12th, we are turning the new help desk on. And thankfully turning the old help desk, not off, but there won't be any new tickets in the old help desk. Now, I'm going to mention that, and I'm going to show you the reason why it's so important for you guys to help us out in just a second here. So we realize you're used to using the RSA support at railslibraries.info, so we're going to keep that email address around. We're also going to add a new help desk email, which we will tell you on or about January 12th. That's the one we're testing from right now. We'll have two eventually when RSA staff become independent. The current help desk email address that we have now will go away, but that's 3 to 5 years down the road. So we'll start off with both of them and kind of transition everybody over to the new email address. Our new help desk allows us to keep a single database for phone calls, training visits, all the cases, correspondence, all kinds of fun stuff, all in one place, and it's all visible when we look at you or your library or a case. But the important part is that only works if everybody is emailing the help desk instead of emailing our staff members individually. And part of the problem we have with trying to figure out workload in RSA is that we have 12 different email accounts that have 12 different versions of our workload because I can't see what's in Doug's or Patty's inbox. So if they, are working things for you and getting them done and sending you off and we don't know about it, we can't adjust our workload. So it kind of hurts us in an overall aspect because A, I don't know what the full workload is, and B, it's hard to see trends, right? So it was much easier for us to notice all these trends when we were all in the same building and we could all hear each other talking and check in on each other. Now we've lost that because we're all working at home. So what we're going to ask you to do is starting in January, if you need to talk to an RSA person about just about anything, we're going to just ask you to email the help desk and then we will track it there because that keeps our history log together. If it's a sensitive issue, sometimes Anna will get phone calls or she will get emails from some people who are maybe not as happy with other people. Those things can probably still go directly to Anna, who will then decide if she wants to move it into her private queue in the help desk or not. But for everything else, we're going to ask that to go through the help desk. When you call us and we pick up the phone, what you're going to hear, and RSA staff need to remember to do this as well. This is a big change on our part too, is that we're going to ask you, hold on just a second, who are you? I need to pull you up in the help desk because we're going to be taking notes with these phone calls so that we have a better history of you. All right, so I don't expect you to read these. I just want you to get an idea of what we see when we use the help desk and why it's going to be so important that you guys send emails to the help desk rather than to our inboxes, right? Right now, Erica was telling you that we have an idea that there are lots and lots of cases in the help desk for certain types of cataloging tickets, but our current help desk has a really hard time of giving us useful output. Our new help desk will break everything down to as much detail really as we want, right? So right now I can see of all the tickets, and these are all fake tickets, but all the tickets in our current help desk, I can see the breakout amongst the administration department, the cataloging department, member services. I can see what the reasons for the tickets being opened are. We can see how long a ticket's been opened. We can automatically escalate tickets based on how long they've been open. We can see what's opened or closed based on membership level and library type, right? So we can start seeing these trends that we currently are not being able to see. The other thing that's nice is that we have a full history of you. And believe me, every time someone goes out of RSA, we lose a chunk of RSA history. When Martha retired, there was a vast black hole of history that walked out the door with Martha. Because all of this that's currently on this screen, this is one person. This is my fake testing user that I've been using. These are all just calls and emails alone with that person. Well, if this person had been working with Martha before Martha retired, we have no data on any of this anymore, right? But now we can see it all on the help desk, all in one screen, plus all the cases that this person's opened, all the trainings that person has attended, all of the libraries that you're affiliated with, because a lot of staff members work in more than one library. We'll be able to know all of this stuff. And so when we talk to you on the phone and we can see maybe this is the third or fourth time you've called about the same issue, hey, that's a flag for us. We'll know it. This is still that same person. I'm scrolled down now. You can see this history just keeps going back farther and farther. And granted, I don't think most of you email quite as much as I have been doing with this person, but you can also see that just right on the same screen, I can see all the cases you've had, whether it's open or closed or whatever, what training you've been on, that kind of thing. So again, the whole idea of this new help desk is to build a history and a kind of shared knowledge base so that when Anna's crew goes out to do a library visit in your library, they can just look at your library and they can see everybody that works in your library, plus all the tickets that have been opened for your library or closed. They can see all the trainings that have happened for people in your library all in one spot. And they're going to be a lot more able to kind of target that visit when they come out to you based on this knowledge. And we're going to be able to look at this and go, oh, we have a gaping hole in how we're dealing with our tickets, or a big spot in our staff there where there's something that's missing because we're getting a lot of tickets, or a lot of, these tickets are taking forever to close. Why is that? We'll be able to look into things a lot deeper. So you're going to hear me harping on this a lot over not so much. I'll send out a couple of reminders to please open tickets with the help desk, but in January, we're going to hammer you with that. We need you to use the help desk. It just has to happen. Here's a particular case, just to give you an idea. We see the case. This particular case has an email that this person sent back to us that we haven't looked at yet, but we can see the entire case history all in one spot, plus all the other cases that are open for this person. Again, just much more information than we currently have. But again, that only works if everything goes through the new help desk. So we will be asking you nicely. We will be asking you a little brusquely if you don't, but we need stuff to go through the help desk. And again, why you should care? Eventually, it's going to help us figure out our workload, and we'll be able to serve you better. So the other thing that you need to know about this, and a part of the reason why I showed you a little bit of the interface, is that's not something you can just turn on and use, right? This needs a lot of training. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of Salesforce before, but it's basically the biggest help desk software in the world. One of the nice things about being a not-for-profit is we get a lot of things for free as a not-for-profit, and Salesforce is one of them. And it is basically the most powerful CRM tool out there. And we're using quite a lot of it. And so we're going to spend the next 2 months between now and January 12th doing a lot of training. So 2, 3, 4 hours a week, staff members are going to be spending playing in the new help desk, opening cases to each other, working through online training, that kind of thing. So you know, bear with us as we learn how to use this new system. But we need to learn how to use it so that when it goes live, we don't just stop on the 12th and not do anything for a week until we figure things out. So we're going to do the work up front. Anybody got any questions about that?
Very impressive.
Thank you. The other nice thing about that is, on occasion, we get asked from people, can you give me a list of all the trainings that my staff have been to, or how many cases we've opened, or, you know, how many times you visited us, or those types of things? And no, no, we can't, but we will be able to once we're on this. So there's some upside for you guys as well. All right, a very quick strat plan overview, because let's face it, it's COVID times and we're working COVID stuff more than we are working strat plan stuff. Our big theme for the rest of 2020, we talked about last time. So this is the same slide as was up last time. I've just updated it. We did basically every part of our system has been updated since our August meeting. Symphony, RSA CAT, RSA CAT Mobile, the reporting products, basically everything has been updated. We continue to tweak RSA CAT, even though the person whose job it really is to do that is not on staff. We continue to tweak it. The one thing we didn't get done was the new firewall, because we can't install the new firewall because they won't let us in the building, and we have to have multiple people in the building working in a very small contained area for a long time in Springfield to get that new firewall installed. So that did not get done. The new help desk, we're training for that. It'll be live soon. The new form software, we've been trying to find a place. We have a hard deadline on the cataloging form, which goes away on the 1st of July, whether we want it to or not, it goes away. So we had to find a way to replace that. And those of you that load pictures to the cataloging request form know there's a lot of data that goes in with each request. So finding an affordable place to host that with software and things like that was difficult, but we found a place. So we've started reworking our forms, tried to make them easier. We expect to have a page on the RSA website that'll be broken out: cataloging forms, member services forms, report forms, right? And these will all just be request forms, but they'll be shorter, less complex forms. So like, for instance, if you've got an M record, a level M record that you need to get updated, you could just click on the level M update form and just fill out that. So you'll be seeing more forms. And the nice thing about the forms is it'll gather all the information we need to actually do the case. And it'll cut out several emails back and forth to get the rest of the email we need. And then we've redone literally thousands, because there are literally thousands of notice reports in our system. We redid each and every one of them. And as far as I know, all the item carousel change requests that have come in, those have all been completed as well. So great job by the member services team that I'm sure their clicking fingers were probably sprained for a good week after doing that. But everybody's notice forms have been updated. And thank you everybody out there in the world for letting us know when you need wording changes or date changes or COVID related changes on your notices. You know, I think part of us talking about notices being redone and asking you to check your notice text has been very good, because a lot of people have updated what their notice text was. So we appreciate you doing that. Please, if you want to change your notice text, just let us know and we will get that done for you. As far as member engagement goes, we're going to continue doing online meetings. We're going to continue holding virtual office hours. Those have not had great attendance, but I don't know that it's hard to know how much attendance we should have for those. It's a weird time. But basically virtual office hours are, you got a question, just log in during a virtual office hours event, which will, we send email out to the listserv about. You log in, you ask your question, you get out. You won't be on Zoom for an hour, you'll be on Zoom for 5 minutes. but it'll give you a chance to log in, and we can even do screen sharing if we need to answer your question. So when you see those virtual office hours, if you've got a question, feel free to hop on and ask it, and then just jump right off. We don't expect anybody to log in and listen to the whole thing for an hour. That's not what it's for. It's just a way for you guys to have an hour or so to ask member services or cataloging or reports or whatever questions. And I continue to send out those monthly baseline reports to show you daily and year-over-year stats. If COVID returns in a bad way and everybody closes, we may move back to a weekly or bi-weekly schedule on those, but I think for now, monthly is probably good. For organizational effectiveness, again, we worked all those notices. We've got the committee chartered, and we're starting to work on the service levels. And then on the operating efficiency side, defunding the 3 new staff positions does not make us operate any more efficiently. I will be perfectly honest, but it is a major pillar in one of the 3 major pillars in that particular area. And that's just how the world works. We continue to add online and video training stuff. Take a look at L2 or the posts that Anna puts out that will point you to L2. And I think everything else we've already talked about. So anybody have any questions about the strat plan?
I am incredibly impressed, Kendall, that you and your staff are getting so much done, working remotely, even though that's slowly becoming the new normal. You were expecting to hire new positions. That didn't happen. And you've had some open positions just because people have moved on to other things. And I'm sure your staff has been, like the rest of the staff, sometimes you have to take some time off for sickness or to self-quarantine or something like that. So based on everything that's been happening, major kudos. Very, very impressed that your staff have done so much everyday work, and then again, accomplishing so much on your strategic plan.
Well, thank you. We appreciate that. We all take the occasional vision day, which is what I call it when I don't get anything done, but I generally at least figure one thing out that day. So it's usually something big that was bugging me. So thank you. You can steal that term, by the way, if you'd like, vision day. That's a nice term for when you get nothing accomplished. Oh, I had a vision day today. And it sounds good when nobody knows what you're talking about. All right. Laura, I will turn the remaining time of the meeting over to you to talk about discussion amongst the membership.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. There are a number of discussion points. I want to encourage anyone who has thoughts or questions on these topics to please speak up. And let's talk about fine-free libraries. Those that are on the call, what has been your experience? I know some of you have gone fine-free earlier this year, and now we're in the latter part of this year. Some of you just within 2 months. So yeah, how's it going? Anyone want to speak up, make any comments?
So this is Elizabeth and Henry. And again, really small. We have gone temporarily fine-free until we are no longer quarantining. I am hoping to show them, hey, we really get the stuff back and extend it after that is over. But for right now, because reasons. Honestly, I look at the overdue notices that get generated, and because I don't want to mail notices, I've been calling people who hit between 21 days and lost. It's my usual suspects who are overdue. It's not anybody new or different. And yeah, it seems to be going well, and we'll see. And I hope we can continue it, honestly.
This is James at RSA. I know our most recent one is Joel. He could probably, yeah, he was a few weeks. And the newest one we have upcoming would be Alpha Park. So other than that, I don't know of anybody else going yet. So hopefully we hear from some more.
Yeah, we do have some comments in the chat. Rebecca Seaborn from Farmington, I think. Rebecca, correct me if I'm wrong. She says that her patrons love it. And Lori Preeby, Lori, I apologize. I can't remember what library you're with. You say that you have been fine free for 2 years. Wonderful. And then Jennifer with Normal Public Library, you went fine free in mid-July and it's going really well for you. Thank you, Lori. You are with Danvers. Thank you very much. So Kathy is also very happy with going fine free. It has been a great positive customer service point with patrons, and staff are also relieved not to have this discussion with patrons. Thank you for mentioning that, Kathy. That has been an aspect of fine free that is not often discussed. People discuss the advantages for patrons, especially low-income patrons, but it's not often discussed how this affects staff, either through regular work processes, workflows, or just perhaps morale or something like that. So thank you for mentioning that. Does anyone else have any comments regarding how your staff, especially your frontline staff, is dealing with fine free or the conversation to go fine free?
This is Barbara and Kiwani. Our fine free started right like April 1st, right in the middle of the close down. And so that was really good timing. It was great and has been great since then to tell customers who also love it that there aren't any fines. We also, during this time, since we've reopened in June, are not charging for faxes or copies. Really, we didn't want to handle money at all, but we have a donation can on all of our service desks. And so far, those donations are running ahead of where those monies would have been last year. So in Kiwani, it's just a success.
Thank you so much, Barbara. Apologize.
I will say, this is Elizabeth and Henry again. We officially went fine free, I don't know, a couple months ago, but we haven't been charging fines since we locked the doors in March. But what that meant until we stopped assessing them is if somebody renewed stuff, then you had to go in and clear the fine because you can't fine free renew like you can fine free discharge. And I'm like, this is a lot of work. We need to, can we just stop assessing them? And so they said yes until we're no longer quarantining, and then we will evaluate. And I'm hopeful that it will be a success and we can just keep it the way it is, because money-wise, it's not gonna make or break the budget.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Kathy actually asked a question similar to that in the chat. Does anyone miss the little revenue it used to bring in? I mean, Elizabeth kind of already answered that. I see Barbara shaking her head. Does anyone want to weigh in and say how they balanced the, the loss of that income? Even if the income was small, it was still income. Does anyone want to make a comment on that? If they did anything specifically or just shrugged it off?
Lexi at Washington, we mostly just shrugged it off. Although at the same time that we went late fee free, we also increased our amount for collections to $300, which means that we pay, like we're not sending out as many overdues, we're not sending out as many collection notices, we're not paying what's their faces, who I can't remember right now, to do collections for us. So that helps offset it a lot. And
okay.
For us, I mean, our fines and fees were only about $10,000 a year, so it wasn't huge.
Okay.
I guess from an opposite perspective, when, Peoria and Fond du Lac announced they were going fine free, at my board meeting, we had a discussion, and my board has zero interest in going fine free. But again, We are special snowflakes here in Morton and live in a bubble.
Alyssa, why doesn't your board have any interest in going fine free?
Partly because of they just feel, I mean, we don't feel that it's a barrier to library access or services at this point. Our patrons cheerfully pay their fines. Our board feels that there should be, that it's an accountability thing and they believe in that model. We're not, now I will say that we are, since especially when we were quarantining for the 7 days, our circulation manager was running reports every day to clear off quarantine induced fines. And of course, our revenue from fines and fees has been lower this year, but we are still receiving revenue, and we still have people paying their fines. And there's just the consensus of the board was at this time they're not interested in that. It will be interesting to see how the revenue shakes out this year when we are operating as sort of half fine free. That might give us a better indication, because our budget line for fines and fees, including lost materials, is about $10,000. And even when I ran some reports to try and figure out exactly how much fines made up of that, it was still fairly significant for our budget, which is less than $1 million. It's 950 total. So they still feel like the revenue, we need that, what revenue we get.
Thank you, Alyssa, for sharing that perspective. Mary Elmer in Chillicothe comments that her library's revenue is similar to Alyssa's. And I will comment that my staff and board, even though this hasn't come to like a voting proposal and discussion at Dunlap, my staff have a similar attitude towards what Alyssa mentioned, in that our patrons, we're finding in Dunlap, by and large, cheerfully pay their fines. They don't complain, and we also don't see it as a barrier. We just don't see a stereotypical, child who is unable to check out books for a school report because he has overdue fines. We just don't see that. Things might change in the future, but that's just what we're seeing our patrons here at my library. Well, wonderful. Any other questions? Are there questions from libraries that are about to go fine free, or just any other questions on this topic?
I'll just chime in real quick and tell you that as far as from what I see looking at the online payments, the number of individual bills paid over the last, say, 6 months has gone down about 60 to 80%. The overall amount of money that comes in has gone down probably 40-ish%. And that's all just the reduction in overdue fines. There's still a lot of lost materials and damaged materials paid online. But the overall total number of bills paid has drastically dropped.
Thank you, Rebecca, for the comment that it really does depend on the community, what will help your patrons, and in a small way, what your patrons want. But Rebecca, you make a very good comment that yeah, it depends on your community, and that's why I'm glad to see that some libraries are taking this question seriously. Not to imply that libraries would take other questions not seriously, but just because this is a trend, this is something that shouldn't be jumped into lightly. So, Well, if anyone has any future questions on fine-free libraries, then you obviously know that you can reach out to any one of the libraries that has commented in the last couple of minutes, or RSA in general, to ask what kind of steps you should take or what information is out there. But I think we'll go on to the next topic.
Sorry, Laura, just real quick. I know for the fine-free libraries, most of you know that I wipe out a lot of the overdue fines for the libraries when they are going fine-free, but I could do that even though you're not going fine-free. So we might have had libraries in the past that maybe just want to wipe out, give everybody a clean slate, even though they're still going to start doing, fines. So if they want to do that, just contact RSA. We could wipe out any existing. Clearly, it's not going to get rid of the lost, things like that, but just anything with a bill reason of overdue. If somebody wanted to have a clean slate without going fine-free, we could do that for you.
Thank you, James. Thank you for mentioning that that's another option to give patrons. Yeah. Okay, so next topic that we're all still talking about. COVID wave. I'm guessing this is 2 out of 3 waves.
2 or 3, 2
2/3?
and 3. 2/3 of a wave of COVID. It doesn't matter. It's COVID. It doesn't matter.
It's COVID. Thank you. And we have one opinion that we are actually still in the first wave. Thank you. Wave number unknown number of wave. And this also ties into a topic that was discussed by me and my management staff this morning, given yesterday's new, not quite guidelines, but recommendations according to the IDPH. So any comments on libraries planning to go 100% to curbside? Any other restrictions? Perhaps patrons in the library browsing the shelves? Anyone want to share any comments? I'll go first really briefly. Starting last Wednesday, my library shut down our one study room, which was available, and it was used, not a lot, but pretty steadily. And we have shut that down, and we have already had patrons, inquire. And my staff really didn't think that was safe. And now with the new IDPH recommendations, my staff is actually considering going to curbside only. So that's something that we're considering at our library. Thank you, Doug, for the link for the info from IDPH that went out yesterday. Any comments?
This is Cheryl at Brimfield, and we went back to curbside only last Wednesday. I believe it was November 4th. We kind of have an outbreak here in our community, and the school had to close and go to full remote learning until November 30th. And I don't know why, but all the businesses around us, we're in the downtown, are having outbreaks as well, like Rookies and different places. So we just went back to curbside only. We're letting patrons come in the entryway. There's 2 sets of double doors, and they can come in there and use our computer to print things, because that's a lot of what people want when they come in and use the computers. So we're still doing that. And then just, I don't know, I'll reevaluate in 10 to see if we're going into tier 2 mitigations or what's happening. If we go back to normal mitigations with no mitigations, then I will go back to, allowing the library to be open again. So I'm just kind of waiting to see.
Thank you, Cheryl. Galesburg, Jane reminds us that Galesburg has been on curbside for several weeks with, they are not allowing patrons in the building, but some specific instances in the library vestibule. And Gail with Spoon River Library, and that's down in Cuba, they are at curbside service only, and they plan to stay that way until mid-January. Thank you for that information, Gail. Doug made a good comment that a lot of school districts are making announcements today and probably tomorrow if they're meeting today. Many of you, I know, pay close attention to what's going on with the school districts in your communities. I know that, as we were just talking about with the fine free, a decision like this about how to help your patrons in what capacity, curbside, opening the library with restrictions, it really does depend on what you can offer your community and also what they need from you. So all I can keep saying is, please keep reaching out if you are feeling that you're not sure what steps to take, you're not sure what steps are even available, what options are available for you to choose from, things like that. Please reach out to either the libraries around you. Anyone on this call would be happy to just talk. Doesn't mean that they have all the answers, but they could talk through it. Also, RSA could talk you through some different options. So many of us, I know, last March felt very overwhelmed and didn't know where to turn. Some of us would argue that we still feel that way. But I'm just wanting to emphasize that please do reach out and talk to your fellow library staff members, because we're here to help. We, in a sense, we're all in this together because we are all trying to help our patrons, which is extraordinarily difficult. Thank you for those of you who commented. And so I guess on to the next topic, which is similar. Is anyone seeing that your patrons or staff are just done with precautionary measures? Is anyone experiencing, especially staff who are really fighting you, that just want things to go back to normal? And if you have had any experience with that, please share how you're dealing with that, because odds are someone else is having experience as well. Melody shares that she sees that in her public, people just want to be done with it all. I think almost everyone just wants to be done with it all. I would agree with you, Melody. The problem is, I don't think you can speak English with this virus. I just don't think it understands the verbal language. Nope, can't argue with it. Well, not too many comments on that topic. So yeah, let's talk about delivery. Hopefully, well, just a moment. We do have some other comments on the chat. Sharon shares that her community is very rebellious about wearing masks. Her community thinks it is a Democratic hoax, and it should have just disappeared with the election. Okay, well, that's not logic whatsoever. Sorry to hear that, Sharon. Wish you well with that situation. Just stand firm with masks required in your building. I'm giving you an e-hug. You can do this, Sharon. You can do it. Be firm. So, okay, thank you. Back to the delivery quarantine. Since we're back to 3 days, has this made things easier for you? Any comment on that? How long do you think your library will follow this rule? Is anyone struggling with this? Is anyone even uncomfortable with 3 days? Are you actually preferring to go back to the 7 days? Any comments on this?
guess the question is, do we have a choice not to follow the rule if we want to continue to have transit services? I mean, I don't have a problem with the 3 days. And in fact, when we went from 7 to 3, even though 7 was a pain in the tuchus, for lots of reasons, our patrons were really upset. They were very concerned that we were doing something ridiculously unsafe by moving back to 3 days, which we've calmed them back down. But like, at what point do we get to go down? I mean, is there any talk of that, or?
Well, good question, Bobby. I don't believe Rails is eager to make the change, change the days again, which of course they don't do just arbitrarily. But to answer your first question, Bobby, I truly don't think it's one of these where we don't have Rails inspectors coming into our library to check, but it's really heavy on the honor system. Rails, as Rails members, they are expecting us to follow their rules, and this is one of their rules. I have heard anecdotally that, and I heard this months ago, that some libraries were just not going to follow the quarantine rule, and all I said at the time is, okay, well, I mean, Rails does this for a reason, and I'm not their mother, so I didn't tell them to stop. So
yeah, as far as I know, there's no plan for Rails to lower it anymore. I know, like down in Heartland, I think they're doing a different number of days. Heartland also does their delivery different. They're actually doing the quarantining in their delivery hubs. So, the item goes to the Heartland quarantine facility. Essentially, it goes into the hub and it sits there for that number of days rather than libraries holding it on the incoming. But our hubs we don't have that much room. We can't do that. So our hub is full at the end of every day with just the daily stuff. So, but as far as I know, there's no plans to change it from the 3 days.
This is Elizabeth and Henry. And I'm glad to be back to 3 days, but in some ways, 7 days was easier because if it came in on Saturday, you checked it in on Saturday. And I didn't have this big chart about what day do I check this in on again?
Right.
You are correct, Elizabeth. That was an easy thing. I admit to that. In the chat, Richard Young has given us a good point. He says that we didn't tell our patrons how long we were quarantined. And while here at Dunlap Library, we also didn't, it's not like I made some kind of statement or directive to the staff. I wanted to thank Richard for saying something and just remind everyone I encourage you to turn around and tell your staff, your frontline circulation staff especially, to just don't put a date on it. Don't put a number on it. Just have your staff use phrases like, there is a quarantine process. It takes longer. You find phrases that really works. My parents happen to live in the northern part of the state, and their local library is with the Prairie Cat system. And my father recently just complained to high heaven that he requested a book, and the clerk at that public library said, "Oh yeah, that's usually in here by 2 days, maybe 3." And sure enough, it wasn't there for like 8. And it makes no sense that that they would have said that. But the point is, the frontline staff should just not put a date, not put a number on it. So I'm sure a lot of you have heard that before, but I'm just taking this opportunity to say it again.
I will say this is in response, at least partially, to Sharon's comment in the chat about the automated message notices. Because we were going fine free, I also moved my first overdue notice to like 10 days. so that if you return the book on time, in theory, you should not get any automatically generated overdue notices. You might still get a courtesy while it was in the bin, but you shouldn't get that overdue notice.
Thank you. Thank you, Elizabeth. If anyone still has any major concerns with their notices, oh gosh, RSA will help you with that. We all remember how crazy that was during April and May and into June. Okay, any last comments on delivery quarantines? Again, so many of us are happy that it's back to 3 days. We have to remember that Rails makes these decisions based on data that they receive from the Realm study. Anything can happen in the future. Things could, go back the other way. But I think that we'll all handle any choices that are made in the future. Okay, next topic. Oh, look at this. Serving Our Public 4.0 standards for Illinois public libraries and the upcoming per capita grant requirements. So, who has any comments on this? Questions, concerns? I know there have been smaller conversations around, in the last couple of weeks. Other library directors have gotten together and just discuss this, especially through listserv. A question that I've heard a number of times is, what level of authority is serving our public? Is it considered a mandate, a recommendation, or just some good ideas? That's a really good question.
It says in the very beginning of the book that it's not a mandate. It says that this is presented as a guide to help you evaluate your library.
Thank you. Thank you, Alyssa. And I was just gonna say that, the book itself says what it is. So yeah, that being said, I think it is a good idea that we're all reading it and our boards are reviewing it. But we shouldn't get ourselves all kinds of worked up if we cannot meet every single one of the goals or recommendations posted.
I'm curious, just for those libraries who have started reviewing the chapters with your board, one of the big changes that I noticed, well, maybe it wasn't a change, I don't know. The thing that we had the most discussion about at our board meeting was on the recommendation regarding succession planning.
Yes.
And, I told my board that I feel like that is, a bigger library with branches like Peoria down here, or some of the bigger Chicago suburban libraries who have positions. I said, I feel like succession planning in a library where I have 20 staff, only 8 who are full-time, and I know there's a lot of smaller libraries on the call, isn't realistic. But since I did actually recently have COVID and was quite ill, not hospital ill, but it was like I had the flu. It was terrible. I do not recommend it. But it took me out for 2.5 weeks. And when I told my board, my president was like, well, that was my first concern, is that, you'd be out for much longer and who would steer the board meetings. And, so anyway, I've realized I need to do a little more documentation. And we talked about, like, who would we appoint as interim director? Is there anyone on staff, or is there a list of retired directors in the area that we could call? Because, my predecessor has moved out of state now, but I know I just saw on Rails that a recent retirement or move up in the Chicago suburbs, they called back their prior director to work as interim. So I'm just curious what kinds of conversations, and I see there's some chat comments about the whole thing about succession. I think boards are most concerned about the director, since that's who they interact with. And I too feel like my staff could keep the library running, and I have a person who does accounts payable and payroll and stuff, but it's the random stuff that I do that no one knows that I do, because I sit in my office and hide from everyone.
Alyssa, thank you for sharing that, because that is a good way to look at that. And many people have agreed with you in the comments in the chat box here. They have commented that it's a good idea to look at that standard, whatever we're calling this, that chapter, that section of the book, as not the succession plan for the rest of the life of the library, but just what happens in an emergency. And looking at it that way makes a whole lot more sense, especially considering what we're going through. I'm very happy to see that you are recovered, Alyssa. I will take your advice, and that you don't recommend us getting COVID. Thank you so much. And Cheryl over in Brimfield also made a good point. She has a subfolder, just like a teacher's. And so that is also a pretty good suggestion. And it really is I would recommend a brightly colored folder, and have very important information in there, the top of which should be like the phone number for RSA and the phone number for Rails, and maybe the phone number for the next library in the next town over, so that, heaven forbid, the bus that hit Kendall also hits one of you. Someone can find that folder for you.
So I sort of answered my question with Barb's comment. This is Elizabeth, about it'll be good when they post the grant so we can see it's there. Because I just looked like a week ago and it was not there. It is there now. So if you are on CyberDrive, it is now with a March 15th, 2021 date for submission, and the grant application and instructions, etc. Yeah, because my question was, when did they update this page? Because I checked like a week ago.
I don't see it. I'm on the grant programs page.
Really? Because
and someone just put it in the link. Sharon, did you just put the link in the chat?
And if she did not, here's another one.
Okay, I see. I got it from that link, but on the general grants page, I don't. There it. Nope, I just see construction grants.
Well, and that might have been
Weird.
the problem. I don't remember how I can never find it that way, so I do a Google search and.
Okay, well, that's good to know. It's finally, because I know there's been speculation on the director's list for months, and so calls the state library, and and everybody has a different answer. And
yes,
I was rushing to finish it because we don't meet in January, but this could help us a little.
I was not rushing, because if you don't tell me what I have to do, then you get what you get.
Yeah.
This is Lexi, because I looked yesterday or the day before, and so they've updated the date, although to my knowledge they haven't actually given like the instructions for exactly what you're supposed to do. But when you like click through and get to the actual application, it's still the one for the previous year, I believe.
Ugh.
Thank you, Lexi. That was this. Another director had a similar comment from last week. And so clearly the state library hasn't updated, every single document and instruction that they have on there. So thank you for checking that.
Which may be why it's not listed on the grants homepage yet. It's just if you Google it, you can find it. So, but they did, at least we can confirm that they are doing the.
Well, it says March 15th.
Yeah, they're doing the March 15th, but you're right, it is. Yeah. It's the old form. Ha! Oops.
Well, wonderful. Once again, as the months go on and we all go through this main requirement in order to apply for our per capita grant, please not only remember that these are recommendations that book is full of, but also if something really does trip you up, just ask for some help. Look around, and I'm sure someone will help you. Personally, I do appreciate the conversation this afternoon, especially regarding the succession plan, because that one, I got tripped up really quick on that. Because I was actually taking that way too literally. And I was hesitant to name any existing, staff member of mine, a complete successor of mine. So, anywho, last comments, concerns about the standards. Thank you, everyone, for your comments. And thank you, Cheryl, for your information that you're putting in the chat regarding your subfolder. Very, very helpful. So thank you for putting that in there.
I guess I will just make one other comment about the standards is that, my board was getting ready to start a new long range plan, strategic planning process in February and March. We had discussed that, but of course, then the world changed. So I had my review last night as well, and my board was sort of interested in kind of trying to do the things that are on the standards list that are relevant to us as my goals for 2021. So it can be helpful in that sense as giving you some direction, since I've basically done everything on our long range plan. And I need projects, which is why I built the library new website.
Thank you. Thank you, Alyssa. Okay, so next thing, it sounds awesome to me. Let's share some stories about something positive that's happened in this time of social distancing. I will kick us off. Some of you have heard me say this before, but I don't mind repeating myself. I have been super pleased with how my patrons have responded to virtual programming. Not perfect. I mean, I'm not saying that I have like 100 people. That only happened once. I'm not kidding. We did actually have 100 people sign up for one of our virtual programs, but that only happened once. No, what I'm really happy about is that my staff was talking, like last December and January, they were talking about doing some type of distance or virtual or online, we were using all those words, book club. Because at least in our area, and perhaps in your areas as well, we had quite a variety of patrons that have either moved away or have moved away just temporarily in the winter. And so in our book clubs, in these regular things that we're meeting on a regular basis, we would see just this dearth of just all of a sudden we had no one. And now that we are doing virtual programming, anyone can attend from anywhere. And that is a wonderful thing. Some people who go away for the winter, some people who have chosen to actually move away south, pretty much permanently, they don't live in Illinois at all. They are still able to connect with their friends and with my staff at the library. As some of you may know, some of my staff members have been with the library for over 10 years, and they really form relationships with patrons. So that is a warm, heartwarming, positive thing. I have another one here from Kathy. Your staff has become very excited about doing their first virtual story hour. They are having a lot of fun planning, rehearsing, and filming stories. Well, I'm happy to hear that. It sounds like quite the creative juices are flowing. Any other positive things that have come out?
This is Elizabeth up in Henry. One of the things that we have done, our book club was virtual and has been kind of a hybrid. I don't know what we're going to do in December. It depends. This month we got away with still being on the front lawn because it was gorgeous on Monday morning. But we've been doing on the front lawn. But in the Zoom part of it, my mother in South Dakota and another woman's son out of Wisconsin, I think is where he lives, have been joining the book club with us. And so that's been fun.
Yeah, that is fun. Any other fun, positive things that have come out of this time of social distancing?
I heard from my staff that a patron commented the other day about how glad she is that we're open and how safe she feels in the library. And she feels we've really, even though it's not the same, we've taken good precautions to keep them safe. And that was nice to hear after the struggle to like try to figure out exactly what, service was going to look like and stuff. It was nice to be affirmed like that.
Wonderful. I feel like I should mention that we see a lot of, maybe not a lot, but at least one really good photograph that Kendall took on his vacation. I don't think we ever would have seen, like his photos from his vacation, if not for Zoom. So that's a thing.
I put that photo up because that is where I was after being when I was in Thailand, when they shut the country down and declared a state of emergency. And we had been there all of 2 days, and the airport was closing in 2 days, and we had to get out of the country. And when you're on a small island like that, that's not easy to plan on a moment's notice. So I took that photo about 2 hours before the world exploded there. So.
Wow.
It is a nice shot. It looks very nice.
Very glad you're back in America. Some comments on the chat. Let's see. Sharon's staff has been very busy with story walks and receiving great deal of traffic and positive comments. And your social media has been blowing up. Excellent. Richard and your staff, you've been offering the take and make kits for young patrons. Yes. I don't know about who else, but same thing with my library. They are just going gangbusters. Any kind of craft, any kind of take home craft. And so that's a good way to keep in contact. Thank you for mentioning that, Richard. And Kathy, at your library, you've done some scavenger hunts. That's actually very interesting. I think I would like to know more about scavenger hunts. We haven't tried that at our library. And so that's very interesting. Yeah. Oh, and Melissa, you got an invite to a patron's birthday parade. Oh, that's wonderful. Alyssa, thank you for sharing this information. I was going to bring this up later, but yes, the governor's press conference has been going on while we're in this meeting, and it's not good. To quote the governor, we're running out of time and we're running out of options. Our growth in new cases is now exponential. We are seeing current numbers and future projections worse than what we saw in the spring. The governor said if things don't take a turn, some form of a mandatory stay-at-home order is all that will be left. Thank you, Alyssa, for sharing that with everyone. Yes, I was going to mention that before we left today, but that is definitely a thing to keep thinking about and keep looking at. Any other, let's switch our brains back to positive, heartwarming stories. Anything else?
This is Cheryl at Brimfield. The reason I was late attending this meeting is we just had a bridal shower. I have a staff member who, Abby, is 25 and engaged, getting married next month. So we had a socially distanced bridal shower for her here at the library, just with staff. There was 8 of us. We set up our activity room with all the seats 6 feet apart and wore masks and decorated it like a luau and had cake and everyone chipped in and got her a gift. So that's something happy that we can celebrate. It was fun.
Yeah.
Well, I've left this meeting a few times because our staff member who had her baby in October was here visiting for the first time. And so I got to go get my baby snuggles, which has been very exciting. I almost brought the baby back to my office. I was just going to hold her in here, but the other staff wanted a chance at her.
I got a rock. I had one of the kids bring me a rock. I don't know. She needs to work on her spelling a little bit, and I don't care. I love it. I have a whole collection of things that I've been accumulating. They keep bringing me stuff since they can't stay. So here's a present. Bye. Okay.
That's very sweet. That's very sweet. My library got our own little free library. We weren't planning to do that at all, but we found that there was a need for that when we were really doing the shelter in place and everything. Okay, well, on to the next topic, which is similar. Does anyone have any shout outs to other libraries or other library staff members for help, suggestions, and encouragement? Courtney, how about you go first?
Totally for Barbara Love for kicking my ass and getting me in gear on that Back to Books grant, which I'm like sitting in front of my little acceptance letter now on. Thank you very much. I pretty much wrote that thing off, and she's like, yeah, no, don't write that thing off. And that was what I needed to get moving with it. So I can't even thank her enough.
Wonderful.
I want everybody to hear it, not just her.
Applause for Barbara. Wonderful job, Barbara.
And yes, nobody's in my library, so I can be as potty mouthed as I need to be.
I want to give a shout out to Beth Duttlinger. Don't know if she's here with us today, but Beth Duttlinger from Lillian Evans Library in Chillicothe. She always has like fantastic, even if they're not policies, even if they're just procedures. She's got so many great things that she thinks out and then is willing to share with anyone who asks. So big shout out to Beth, so that I don't have time, I don't have enough brain power to sit and rethink something, but that's great because Beth has already thought of it for us. Any other comments? Any other shout outs?
Yeah, for RSA for keeping this stuff wired up as best you can in absolutely obscene, insane conditions.
Yes, huge applause to all of the RSA staff. All of the RSA staff.
Because honestly, a lot of other folks really kind of dropped the ball for us, and y'all stood up and did the best you could with what you had to work with, which was pretty much nothing.
Well, we hire good people, and good
True
people
dat.
take care of you.
I'll give another shout out to Melissa from Alpha Park and Joel from Illinois Prairie. They each helped me with a virtual story time. They each agreed to read a storybook and let me film them. And so that's going to be a virtual story time for Dunlap Public Library. So cool. Thank you very much. We've already aired Melissa's. Mainly because Melissa speaks Spanish better than I do. and that was very, very popular story time. So thank you, Melissa, and thank you, Joel, for doing that. Any other good wishes, kudos that we want to send out to everyone? Okay, well, let's open up the floor. Really, anything else to discuss that we haven't discussed? Even if you asked it in the chat, maybe you mentioned something in the chat and we kind of overlooked it, which I apologize. I've been trying to watch that. Any other questions or comments or even concerns? Man, okay.
I have something.
Okay,
This is Cheryl at Brimfield. I was wondering about whoever does the adult selections of DVD materials in your libraries, and how do you guys handle purchasing like political documentaries that can be of a controversial nature. A large percentage of our library district are very lean to the right. And so like that Trump card DVD that I saw on Baker and Taylor, adding that to the collection, or some of the other documentaries and books that are coming out. Because there's just a lot of either side going back and forth. And do you classify that stuff if you buy it under conspiracy theories or just, you know, it like a documentary, for instance, Trump card is considered nonfiction as the way you catalog it. And, you know, how do you handle that stuff? It's kind of a sticky wicket, I think.
Well, this is Elizabeth, and this is not about DVDs because quite frankly, my DVD budget is such that if it's not a popular movie and really cheap, I'm not going to buy it. But with books, I have been making kind of a concerted effort to look for things on both sides and look for the things that that didn't look like they were a personal vendetta or hatchet job as a primary goal, which is tough. But yeah, I mean, my community skews heavily to the right, but I did look for things that would be on the other side of it too. But like I said, I tried to find the things that the reviews and everything didn't appear to be really a personal vendetta book or a hatchet job book, you know. So that's what we've done.
I've waited to see what patrons put on hold and what they request. We have a pretty active group of people who request material. And then, as others have mentioned in the comments, I try to make sure we have, you know, opinions from both sides. But if they request, you know, rage or whatever, I purchase it because I know that at least someone wants to read it. And then I just keep an eye on the holds too for those items. If I haven't, like, I tend to wait and we kind of have a policy of purchasing whatever's on the New York Times bestseller list. So, but we sort of vet some of the more political stuff and see if we have holds for it. So that's the approach we've taken here in Morton.
That's a really good point, Alyssa. Thank you. And Cheryl, yeah, if you can look at the chats, a lot of people are echoing what Alyssa and Elizabeth said about buying something from both sides. So even if that is a new DVD, you know, take a couple minutes to look around. Is there another DVD that maybe came out, you know, in the last couple months? Or write yourself, you know, a big sticky note. Maybe something will come out in another 2 months that will lean very, very hard on the other side. And then you'll be able to even things out.
I like to look at the musty standards that I learned in Texas. I don't know if you guys are familiar with those, but it's used for weeding. But I think it's useful to build a collection, and it's like, is it misleading? You know, the condition of it, is it superseded by a truly new edition or new information? So I can drop that in the text if you're interested in looking at that. Yeah.
Thanks very much, Melissa. What other questions do people have or concerns?
It's really dumb. And I think I probably know the answer, but I'll go ahead and ask the dumb question anyway. Access to the Ellison die.
What's the actual question, though? I mean, we can send you
can
one.
access be
Yeah, we
worked
could
out
yeah.
for the Ellison?
Yeah, you mean for the machine or for the stamps?
The dies I know I can order ILL, but I know y'all won't ship me that press.
Kendall, what are your thoughts?
I don't think we've ever shipped the press because it's insanely large, heavy, and not something that would survive several shipments.
Yeah.
So I think in the past, if we needed to do special jobs, I think we probably did it internally.
I know I had made the trip a couple of times to use it. I know y'all used to offer the service where we could send you materials and say, when you have a chance, can you press out whatever and whatever.
I could do some on a Monday when I'm one of my office days.
I'm not
could
quite
listen-
there yet. I want to figure out what that status is before I even start planning things, because I'm already having to think about Christmas mode.
I would be game to cut out a few things for you on some random Monday when I'm in there. I could listen to a webinar on my headphones and do it. So
Sweet. We'll talk.
Okay.
We have other conversations to have about music and other things anyway.
Well, and if everyone emails me about this, then I may reevaluate this stance. But as long as it's a manageable level, I will entertain those requests.
Well, I told you it was stupid.
And Cheryl has asked another question. How many of us have submitted a Cures grant? I have on behalf of my library, and it looks like Alyssa has as well. I received some follow-up emails, and I need to answer them. I've been ignoring them for a few days, but I haven't gotten a check yet, but I started the process. Anyone else want to comment? Oh, Cheryl, you had trouble with the government asking for a letter of good standing. Huh. Don't know what to say about that. A letter of good standing for your library?
Yeah, I keep getting these bounce backs from the government asking for almost like a verification, like we're a business, but we're a public library. They wanted this thing called a cage code, which we don't have. We have a DUNS number. And then they want this letter of good standing with a seal from the Secretary of State. I talked to the Illinois State Library today, and I'm like, I don't think any of the other libraries had to do this.
You have a cage code.
Anyone know anything about this? Am I getting the runaround?
What did the Illinois State Library say to you?
Well, I sent an email to Greg because he can do a letter of good standing for me. He's on vacation till Tuesday, but he's supposedly he's going. Karen Egan said he can send me one, but I don't think other libraries have had to do all this. Why is it so hard for Brimfield?
Did you talk to someone at DECO?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I didn't have to, but I guess that's your industry, your SIC code. But I was able to find my cage code and everything.
Yeah, see, we don't have one that I wasn't able to find one when I went to look it up. So I don't think we've ever tried to get federal money before. That's the problem.
In Henry, I am not doing this, but in Henry, I now have a cage code because I was part of Tri-County's census grant for Marshall County. And to get the money back from that, I had to do the whole SAM registration and get a cage code. And it's
I did the SAM registration and it got bumped back to me because of the cage code thing. I looked it up. We didn't have one. So maybe that's why I need the letter of good standing, because we don't have an assigned cage code. I don't know. I just thought
You should be able to get a cage code though. It's a separate registration, but you should be able to go and do that.
I've been confused.
Yeah,
I'm gonna look in my email and see if I can kind of track, because we just did this in March, right before I was ready to go with the census stuff. When we met on the second Tuesday of the month, which would be, let's see, 13th, 12th, 11th, the 10th of March, I think. So, you know, I had a meeting with them on the 10th of March and I was all ready to go and getting all my stuff in line. And then, well, you know, we know how the rest of the week went.
You know, it was Friday the 13th that they
Yes.
shut everything down. And tomorrow is Friday the 13th and I'm nervous.
Thank you, Alyssa. Man, there's something we said for continuity. Okay. Well, Cheryl, thanks for asking those questions about the grant, because we want people to receive all kinds of money. And oh, a belated shout out to Gina at Fond du Lac, who told me that my library had some cash waiting for me through the treasurer's office, the iCash. Thank you, Gina. You're awesome. Had to fill out a couple papers, get something notarized, and I supposedly will get $100 that the Dell Corporation owed the library. I don't know. But if you haven't gone to the state treasurer's website and looked things up or looked your name up, do it. I actually did that a couple years ago, and my husband had some money coming to him, and so did his deceased mother. Okay, well, it sounds like we're kind of done with this topic. So any other comments for what people want to talk about in February? Given the state of everything, we probably won't know what we want to talk about in February until February, because anything can happen between now and February. But in all seriousness, as the months go on, and if something does come up, even if it's a question, sorry to pick on you, Cheryl, even if it's a question like Cheryl had, she just wanted to know, what does your library do about purchasing DVDs? Or if it's a small question like that, please feel free to share it with Kendall. You can email me. If you forget about both of that, you guys could email Anna and just say, I want to add this, you know, I want to talk about this at the next RSA users group meeting. Any questions like that? Any concerns like that?
Yeah, tomorrow, one of the things I do is make the basically template agenda for the February meeting. And so anything somebody asks me between now and that meeting, I'll just dump it on there. So feel free to send those things to me whenever you think about them, and you know, we'll add them on, and we'll do it during member discussion time at the February meeting.
Thank you very much, Kendall. And Courtney, I completely sympathize. It's hard to even plan tomorrow, much less February. So just saying. I am going to, I'm very, very close to calling for anyone want to, do we have to move to adjourn, or do we just adjourn? Okay, just thought I'd ask, can't remember. I am going to actually adjourn this meeting. If anyone has any very pressing questions or concerns, feel free to stay on for another minute. We can talk, but meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much for everyone, for attending, for commenting, for sharing. It is important that we still come together and we share, if nothing else, share our backgrounds. I decided to come into the library today for these meetings, so I can't share my cats with you. Otherwise, I would have done that.
My dog would have been on screen, but I'm in the office because my home internet is not good enough for a day of Zoom. We had 54 people at the end, which is amazing considering we had a high of, when I looked anyway, a high of 77 people, and we had 54 people stay on till the end. So thank you everybody who did.
Well, don't thank me yet. I was only sort of here. I was kind of in and out and sort of paying attention. And sometimes the headphones and Pete were just listening to you.
Listen,
So
I
if you
enjoy
tell me
anybody
about
who leaves
anything
their
too
camera
important,
on.
so I'm gonna have-
All right. Everybody have a great day.
Have a nice weekend. Bye-bye.
Change this. Desktop chat. Save chat. That's what I want to do.